Caleb Wilson's announcement is going to come soon, and it feels like Wilson is a lock for Mark Pope and the Kentucky Wildcats.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to be providing you with an update on Caleb Wilson. That's right, Joe Tipton of On3 put an article out discussing Caleb Wilson's commitment. It should be coming soon, according to Wilson himself. Also on today's episode, is Kentucky going to get a major wide receiver back who has already entered the transfer portal? Going to make some things very clear on that news as well. And then to wrap up the show, could the Kentucky Wildcats already get in the transfer portal, not for football, but for basketball? Pope in the portal may commence here soon. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. And if you are watching on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show. And if you are listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subbed there as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 wins. You can visit FanDuel.com to get started there. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Caleb Wilson has announced that he will be announcing soon. That is, in essence, the update here today from Joe Tipton, a college basketball recruiting insider over on On3, doing incredible work over there. You can find this again over on On3. 5-star plus power forward Caleb Wilson, the 5-star that Kentucky's been going after for quite some time now to add on to their already incredible 2025 recruiting class. He has narrowed his list of schools down to 5 officially. It is Kentucky, North Carolina, Ohio State, Tennessee, and UCF. He has taken a visit to every single one of these schools: the Cats, the Tar Heels, the Buckeyes, the Vols, and the Knights. Used to be the Golden Knights. I think they just like to be called the Knights now. But he is aiming, according to Joe Tipton, for a commitment in either December, so right now, or in January. Apparently, he also previously considered schools like Arkansas, Duke, Bama, Georgia Tech, Auburn, Oregon, USC. He is somebody that I've been very, very excited about for quite some time now. A player that has a ton of upside at his position at the power forward spot. But the thing about Wilson that really excites me is his versatility, specifically on the defensive end of the floor. This is a scouting report that is just filled with praise about how he brings it every single game on the defensive end. You're getting steals, you're getting blocks, you're getting locking up every single position. In essence, really strong 1 through 4, but I think looking at some of his film, sometimes in high school, he can get you all the way down to the 5. Phenomenal frame, really, really athletic, bouncy player. Yes, his offensive game does need a little bit more time to develop, but he's got a ton of moves. He's not as polished as maybe some of these other prospects that Kentucky's already gotten committed, but it's the upside. You see the potential. You see the scoring pop potentially there. The efficiency maybe will take a little bit of a dip at times, but man, whenever you pair him, and this has been the consistent theme for months now, whenever you pair him alongside a couple of really high-profile scorers, somebody to kind of take attention off of him, he thrives, like just goes absolutely insane. He had some really, really solid circuits recently, and I believe Caleb Wilson would do so well next season with a Caden Lewis and Jasper Johnson, and not those two, just those two, by the way. Also, center Malachi Marino, who has the ability to absolutely fill it up as well. Something I love about Marino, and this is just kind of going off on a tangent here about a player that has already committed to UK and is just kind of somebody that I think we forget about at times. Malachi Marino has this great ability to grab offensive boards and just be a vacuum down low. This is something that Kentucky has not really seen since Oscar Tshiebwe, which again was not really that far back, but still, since then, Kentucky hasn't really had a big man that can really go out there and just establish himself, grabbing rebounds consistently. Caleb Wilson tweeted out over Joe Tipton earlier today saying, "Where's home?" But again, want to reiterate, he is for sure going to commit in either December or January. So it's happening within the next few weeks. A couple of different people have already put in a crystal ball predicting Caleb Wilson to commit to Kentucky. Aaron Gershon, friend of the program over at 24/7 Sports, he has put in a crystal ball. Trilly Donovan, who is somebody that tries to be a private insider, but apparently this has gotten out already on Twitter, so I'm just going to mention it. If you want to go follow Trilly's work, he's got some stuff behind paywalls, but it's already leaked that apparently he believes that Caleb Wilson will end up committing to Kentucky as well. So this feels like right now just kind of a surefire thing that Kentucky's going to get another 5-star here for Mark Pope and company. In case you haven't seen it, again, Wilson, 5-star, number 5 player in the country, according to On3's industry ranking, number 2 power forward, and number 1 player in the state of Georgia. If you want to go look at Kentucky's recruiting class right now, it is currently 5th nationally, 2nd in the SEC. You've already signed 2 different 5-star players in Malachi Marino and Jasper Johnson. Caden Lewis, a 4-star guard, ranked number 33 nationally. But frankly, I think Lewis may be my favorite piece here in next year's class. A couple of southpaws, by the way, left-handers, and Johnson and Lewis as well. This is going to end up being a really, really, really good class. And you could add on to it possibly with some solid players in the transfer portal, and hopefully you get some guys back like Otega Owe and maybe a couple different pieces next season as well. So we'll continue to monitor it. Obviously, Wilson's news should be coming soon. Let me know what you think in the comments below about Caleb Wilson. More than likely coming to Kentucky at this point. Another really high-profile addition for Mark Pope and company, at least possibly. All right, I want to talk here for a little bit about Dane Key, a really, really solid receiver for the Wildcats over the past couple of seasons. Enter the transfer portal. Could he be coming back to UK instead of entering the transfer portal and staying there? I want to be very clear with the reports that have come out specifically from KSR before we dive into just kind of the news around that and about Kentucky's transfer portal class, which is really, really good so far, by the way. I do want to tell you guys about our friends over at Rocket Money. Rocket Money, do they help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? Well, that definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was paying for, and Rocket Money made it easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant here for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It can monitor your spending, and it helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. And it brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. It's really, really awesome. Their subscription tracker for me, I've used it to cancel services very, very recently, actually, that I had no idea that I was paying for multiple years, which just goes to show you need help budgeting. You need help monitoring your spending, and there's no more stressing here for me. And you can cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money by going to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Again, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, continuing along here on the Monday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everybody. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I would love it if you did so. We've talked about Caleb Wilson, the 5-star power forward, just a gifted player on both ends of the floor, more than likely committing to the Kentucky Wildcats. Let's talk about football. Partially a sobering reality here for the Cats, and then also at the same time, something exciting, I think, for UK, because despite a really just crummy season, just an awful season for Mark Stoops and company, they're doing some things in the portal that will go ahead and just, I'll say it, are getting me excited a little bit for next year. So in case you didn't see it, Kentucky lost a lot of pieces to the transfer portal. Barry Brown committed to LSU. You've got Dane Key in the transfer portal as well. And there's been a rumor online buzzing about how Dane Key could potentially return to Lexington, and he could return to Kentucky instead of going to transfer to, I believe he's already taken visits to Ole Miss and Georgia. We'll see where Key potentially ends up, but KSR's Ryan Lemond, who does the radio show alongside Matt Jones and Drew Franklin, he is actually Dane's godfather, and he's a really close friend of Key's family, and you can go read more about this actually on WildcatBlueNation.com. They put out something about this really specific earlier, and this is something that I believe Lemon said on KSR's show earlier today. He was asked about whether or not Key would potentially come back, and he immediately said about the internet speculation, direct quote, "That's not even on the table." So shut that down for anybody out there that may be wondering. I've seen maybe one or two of you already comment about the transfer portal and Key. For some of you out there that think that this could be possible, just go ahead, lower your expectations. It's not on the table, according to Lemon, who is close with the family. This is a very good receiver that, of course, Kentucky would love to have back. Already 126 receptions for 1,800-plus yards, 14 touchdowns. He has been somebody that could stretch the field for Kentucky. He was really solid with his route running, just a really nice all-around receiver that was in that recruiting class with Barry and Brown a few years ago. I remember hopping on here on the show early during my time here with Locked On Kentucky and talking about how excited I was to see both Brown and Key kind of pair up with each other. And it's such a shame to see him go alongside Brown, to see them kind of split away. This was something from Nebraska's On3 website as well. I'll just read it here directly. This was passed on to me this morning from our KSR site. Ryan Lemond is Dane Key's godfather and co-host of the KSR radio show with Matt Jones. He hinted on the radio that Dane Key news is coming. He said it's down to Georgia, Illinois, and Nebraska. Lemond said Illinois remains in the running because the wide receiver coach was the same one at South Carolina when Carolina recruited him. Nebraska's draw is QB play and facilities. Dane's girlfriend evidently attends Georgia. He had 47 receptions for 715 yards, the article notes as well, this past season, and they say that it wasn't necessarily a breakout season that they hoped for. Man, I'm just excited with the consistent production given what Kentucky had around Key and Brown. They had a not-so-good quarterback, just flat out, full stop, and Brock Vandegrift, and they didn't really have a great offensive line on top of all of this, and Kentucky has gone out in the transfer portal, and they've tried to solve both of those problems. First and foremost, we'd had a little bit of a conversation about whether or not Kentucky would want Malik Murphy, the Duke transfer, or Zach Calzada, the Incarnate Word transfer previously at Auburn and Texas A&M, and they ended up getting Calzada. I said I'd prefer Calzada just because of the fact that he's a little bit more mobile, and I've seen him make plays in the SEC before. Calzada, a 3-star quarterback coming out of high school, a 3-star quarterback in the portal, threw for 30-plus touchdowns at Incarnate Word. Before anybody says anything about, this is just mid, this is just terrible, your world, end of the world, which is some of what you guys are doing online, which I get it. Like, on paper, this is not a phenomenal signing. But playing devil's advocate here, the man went and carved up one of the best defenses in the SEC a couple of years ago, stepping in, injured, by the way. On top of this, Cam Ward, Miami's current quarterback, one of the favorites to win the Heisman heading into the season. I believe he finished like 4th or 5th in voting. He started his career at Incarnate Word as well. Sometimes you get diamonds in the rough. Who knows? Calzada, this could be a really solid kind of resurgence here towards the end of his college career. But it's not just him. Kentucky has added also a total of 14 different commitments in their 2025 transfer portal class, and it brings them the number 5 recruiting class in the portal cycle right now. Auburn, Ole Miss, Texas Tech, a couple of different teams above them, but this is really impressive from Stoops and company. They've gone out and gotten some offensive linemen here. They've gotten some pieces on the defense as well. You look and you see the offensive tackle from Bowling Green, Alex Wolschlager, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He is a 4-star tackle there. Very, very solid pickup, one of the best in the portal there. Evan Wibberly, who is out of Western Kentucky. You also got different guys at receiver like J.J. Hester from Oklahoma, who's a speedster and was really good a few seasons ago, last season. You have Kendrick Law, a 4-star wide receiver out of Alabama, who's a well-rounded guy, could be the Dane Key replacement in essence if we're looking at that way. Wallace Unamba, who is another offensive tackle out of New Mexico. You've gotten different guys again on the defense. You've got outside linebacker Sam Green out of USC, Landon Watson out of Marshall, who is extremely productive there. Cameron Olds, who is also very productive as an edge at Kent State. He's a 4-star guy coming out of the portal. You have here across the board some really impressive additions. Dante Dowdle, I haven't even mentioned him yet. He's the starting running back for Nebraska, and you go and look at his highlight tape. 6'2", 225. Kid's a beast. This guy could be really special alongside Jamarian Wilcox. You're building the offensive line. You've got 2 new receivers in, major receivers in Hester and Law. You've got a QB in Calzada. Look, you've got a lot of different guys that are not just, they could be good, but they're proven. They're proven, and they're really good pass blockers, I want to note, by the way, for the offensive linemen coming in, at least according to PFF. So you've got a bunch of different guys that you can go out here and get excited about. You absolutely do. So Key, he's not coming back to Kentucky, which is a shame, but I really am excited about the prospects that Kentucky is already starting to bring in. So will next year be kind of maybe a bounce back to what we have seen from Mark Stoops, which is upsetting teams because they don't take UK seriously? Maybe you start to see Kentucky reestablish themselves in the trenches. Who knows? Who knows? We'll have to see. Speaking of the transfer portal, Kentucky basketball, they're not in on this kid just yet, but he has entered his name into the portal, a player in the college basketball ranks that could end up being a solid addition for somebody. Even in the SEC, there are already SEC teams that have reached out to this kid. Before we break down, could Pope get back in the portal here soon? I do want to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 wins. FanDuel has so many different ways for you to pick up a dub. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's thrilling, especially when you know that you're going to get a really good offense against maybe a favorable matchup, looking at the Packers possibly earlier today, thrashing the Saints. Love going on there and looking at points and different touchdowns. I also just kind of cater things towards some of the players on my fantasy team as well, which is also fun. You can visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. If your first bet of $5 or more wins, you can make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, wrapping up the Monday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Again, thank you guys so much for hanging out. Merry Christmas to anybody watching. Happy holidays for those who don't celebrate. I'm so happy to be able to break this down for you guys. Different things going on with Kentucky basketball, football. I love hearing your thoughts. This is not an insider show. This is not somebody trying to pretend that I'm some journalist that knows more than you do about what's going on behind the scenes. Now, I do like to think, I put a lot of time, a lot of research into especially breaking down Kentucky basketball as an individual team and some of their matchups. But I mean, hey, this is the job. I love it. I love it so much. Thank you guys for watching. We are getting through, I believe this is the 632nd episode of Locked On Kentucky. I went and counted last night. We were on 631, so 632 episodes here as we wind down the 2024 calendar year. Thank you guys so much again for tuning in. And we've got some interesting news here as we continue to march into 2025. Gentlemen, there is a college basketball player in the transfer portal that has heard from a lot of different solid programs. And it's actually, funnily enough, a transfer forward that played for a team that Kentucky plays on the 31st, and that's Brown. Forward Nana Owusu-Anane is how you pronounce his name. Owusu-Anane being a hyphenated last name. He has entered the transfer portal, 6'8" senior, and he's already heard from these teams, according to his agent at Lift Sports Management. He has heard from Texas, Louisville, Georgetown, Clemson, Ole Miss, Baylor, Kansas, Iowa, Arizona State, San Diego State, USC, and SMU. SMU, as we like to call them here on the show. Didn't know the college basketball transfer portal was open. But hey, this is something that Kentucky, they wanted to, they could get in on. 6'8" senior, averaged 14.7 points, 8.8 rebounds, and 2.1 assists per game last year. Plan, according to Joe Tipton, is for him to enroll this coming summer and play next season. You want to go look at his more specific stats. 3 years at Brown. He hasn't transferred to or from anywhere else before. Freshman year averaged almost 6 points per game. Sophomore year averaged 10.3. And this past season averaged 14.7 points per game. A legitimate stretch four, averaged 2.5 3-point attempts per game, shooting 31% from beyond the arc. And if you say that's bad, that's what Jackson Robinson. I think he's actually shooting a little bit worse than that this season. Anyway, he's a decent foul line shooter for his size as well. Again, almost 9 boards a game. 2 assists, 1.3 steals, 1 block per game. He's doing a lot of different things for a decent team in the Ivy League, which, by the way, if you think the Ivy League's bad, it's like the 12th best conference out of like 32 in Division I college basketball, so they're not bad. Brown is not a bad team. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Brown is not a bad team. They're not bad. Please don't put any juju on me. When I do the preview episode here in a few days, I don't want to have to head into that matchup saying, oh, Kentucky's going to thrash Brown, and then they don't thrash Brown. Brown is a good team. They're excellent. They're wonderful. Say nothing but positive things about Brown. Shout out Clint Darden for the suggestion on Twitter. So, yeah, Kentucky could get in the transfer portal if they wanted to. They absolutely could. I'd like to see them at least reach out to the kid. So let me know what you guys think there in the comments below. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hey, you can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at @LanceDawe_, and you can follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. You can hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.